Good morning. I'm Ruth Van Lillian, the minister of this congregation. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Tuscaloosa, a covenantal community founded on love and a common devotion to our free faith. We recognize all the earth as sacred ground, and we welcome each other into this virtual space. We especially welcome those visiting with us. We're so glad that you are here this morning. We invite you to connect with us through the comments or via our website or Facebook page. We join with all member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association in affirming and promoting our 7 principles, including the inherent dignity and worth of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, and the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. We bear witness to the pain and suffering of persons of color in our communities and across our country, and we continue in our commitment to fight injustice and to search for ways to build a better world. Black Lives Matter.
Good morning. I'm Anna Schubert, the lay service leader for today. There is a link in our order of service in the video description below, along with other useful information. If you are viewing from a smart TV, you may not be able to see the links and comments below. In that case, you can access the links and comments by going to the UU Congregation of Tuscaloosa YouTube channel through the YouTube app on your smartphone, tablet, or personal computer. There are a number of important announcements in the order of service, so be sure to check. Our church website and Facebook page have information about our online activities. Also, members and friends should read all the Newsnet emails and our monthly newsletter to stay updated on congregational matters. We also invite you to our online Zoom coffee hour immediately following this service so that we may join together in real time for community and fellowship. See the link in the links and comments below or in the Newsnet email. The prelude prepares us for the service.
We invite you to light a chalice of your own at home. This might be a simple candle in a bowl or something more elaborate that you've made or purchased. We light this chalice as a beacon of our faith and as a reminder of our commitment to a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We worship together, though we are at a distance, by celebrating that which is sacred to us, individually and collectively.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you yet again. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Amanda Schuber. I am a student of divinity at Star King School for the Ministry in Oakland, California, and I currently live in Huntsville, Alabama. I am a grown child of UUCT, the daughter of Anna Schuber, and I am honored to be with you today. Our opening reading this morning is called Tangled by Dawn Star Sarah's Borchette. Knit 6, purl 6, sets of 2 rows, 4 rows, 6 rows up to 12, patterns, repeating, steady, soothingly same. This is not what life is like. Life is like picking up a tasseled hunk of yarn pulled out of the basket by an impatient child looking for a string too many times. You find an end. You follow the thread for a while, and sooner or later you hit a tangle, knots and twists and loops all mixed together. Sometimes I sit there and untangle it, pulling little by little until I have one piece stretched out and can go on to the next one. Sometimes I grab a pair of scissors and cut. Enough. I only need a little anyway. But sometimes I hold the tangle in my hand, amazed for a moment at the complexity, the mess. I look at it and I think, this can't be solved. It just is. There are patterns, connections, confusing ones, frustrating ones, the thread turning back on itself as life also does. The tangled things will always be here. In this moment, I am living through. Right now, whatever comes after. Even if I work through this, even if I cut the cord and walk away, look at the tangled knot in the yarn. Look at how it hurts. And so ends our reading.
Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain, race in vain. Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain, race in vain. Stand by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain, race in vain. Search my heart while I run this race. Search my heart while I run this race. Search my heart while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain, race in vain.
When we gather in loving community, we remember that we do not travel this earth alone. We share our lives as we light candles and hold each other in meditative thought and reverence. I will light a candle in my home as you light a candle in yours, and we will observe a moment of silence while you share your joys and burdens in the comments below and engage with each other in celebration and condolences. I will now light a final candle for all those burdens and celebrations shared in our virtual spaces and for those that went unspoken. May the warm light of these flames bring us peace.
Let us spend some time in silent meditation, and then I will close us with some words from Nelson Mandela. We understand it still, that there is no easy road to freedom. We know it well that none of us, acting alone, can achieve success. We must therefore act together as a united people for national reconciliation, for nation building, for the birth of a new world. Let there be justice for all. Let there be peace for all. Let there be work, bread, water, and salt for all. Let each know that for each the body, the mind, and the soul have been freed to fulfill themselves. Let freedom reign. Amen. Shalom. Blessed be.
The world needs your voice. Mine? Yes, yours. Go ahead. It doesn't need to be perfect as long as it's from your heart. You can say something in many ways, with words, actions, with creativity. If you see someone lonely, say something by just being there for them. If you see an empty canvas, say something with your brush. If you see an empty lot, say something by planting a seed and watching it bloom. If you see someone being hurt, say something by being brave. Hey, stop! If you see something beautiful, say something with a poem. If you have a brilliant idea, say something with confidence. Eureka! If you want to show the world who you are, say something with style. Ta-da! If you are angry, say something to help people understand. You made me feel invisible. It really hurt. I'm really sorry. If you see an injustice, say something peacefully. Inspire others to do the same. Sometimes you'll say something and no one will be listening, but keep saying what is in your heart, and you will find someone who listens. Keep saying it, and you might be surprised to find the whole world is listening. If you are grateful for being alive, quietly say something to the stars, to the universe. Some people find it easier to say something than others, but everyone has something to say. So when you're ready, say something. Your voice can inspire, heal, and transform. Your voice can change the world. Are you ready to say something?
our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Out of gratitude for all we have been given and all we have now, we share our resources because we love and trust each other, and because this church enriches our lives and empowers us to make a world a better place. We rely upon each other, members and friends, and we appreciate the payment of pledges and the generous donations to support the legacy, vision, and work of this church community. Contributions may be made by PayPal, by using the link below in the description, or mailing checks to UUCT. All undesignated contributions will be divided between our Split the Plate recipient organization and our congregation. Our Split the Plate partner for this month will be shown on the screen as you are listening to this. Please mark your pledge payments to UUCT in the comments field on PayPal or the memo line of your check. If you prefer to write a check to the selected organization, please mail it directly to the address we include in the description of this video. The offertory music will continue in this window as you open a new window to make your contributions. By the work of our hands and the generosity of our hearts, our love is made real. Thank you for your gifts.
The phone rings at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night. My wife hands it to me and says, "It's your mom." She says it with that concerned look that makes me hold my breath. This late at night can only mean one of two things. Someone has died, or the more likely scenario, my younger brother Jake is having some kind of trouble. This is how it goes, how it has gone for as long as I can remember. Jake lives with multiple mental health disabilities, a 33-year-old body with the mental state of about a 15-year-old, a traumatic brain injury in his 20s that nearly killed him, and the alcohol that his birth mother drank while she was pregnant with him can make interactions with and for him rather difficult. Our family isn't that unique, though. We are merely one of the millions of families living with the ravages of America's growing mental health crisis. Hidden, ignored, shamed, and left to navigate underfunded, undereducated, and incongruent systems that rarely provide adequate help. The numbers show a scary, scary scene. Approximately 1 in 5 adults in the U.S. experiences mental health concerns within any given year. Approximately 1 in 5 youth, 13 to 18, experience a severe mental health disorder. An estimated 26% of homeless adults staying in shelters live with serious mental illnesses. And 70% of youth in the juvenile justice system have at least one mental health condition. And suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the U.S., and among people aged 10 to 34, it's the 2nd leading cause. But despite its widespread impact on nearly every American family, either directly or indirectly, mental illness is rarely spoken about openly. While there are many reasons for this, I have a hunch that it boils down to 2 main factors: fear and shame. Mental health has been used over the centuries as weapons, especially against women and minorities, millions of whom were confined to sanitariums because they weren't obedient enough or they were just plain in the way. Fear is a powerful motivator. After I had my daughter, the depression and anxiety that I had lived with since I was 16 went into hyperdrive. What started out as a serious case of the baby blues, the massive hormone battle to re-regulate after pregnancy, it quickly turned into a case of postpartum depression. No one had told me anything about the baby blues. Not my friends, my family, my doctors, or my nurses. No one. And while not every woman experiences the baby blues, those that do find themselves in a scary and traumatic situation, especially if you have not been warned and about the time frame or the way to ease through it. After that extreme emotional roller coaster had passed a bit, a deeper sense of dread and anxiety set in. Now, I started my professional career as a trained social worker, so when I was handed a postpartum questionnaire to fill out at my daughter's postnatal visit, I knew the right answers to mark. And by right, I mean the answers that wouldn't arouse any suspicion that something was wrong. See, that's the thing about mental illness. It lies to you. It tells you that you can handle it, that if they find out, they will take your baby from you. After all, you're a lesbian in the South. What more proof do they need that you're unfit? The fear and the shame that I felt during that time set me on a year-long path of depression that robbed me of so much joy with my child. Looking back now, I wish I could have asked for help. I wish I could have been honest. I wish there had been more than a questionnaire. Fear's sneaky little cousin is shame. And while I would like to thank Hollywood for this one, it's not all their fault. Though they do share a fair amount of the blame for our more modern perspectives on mental illness. You see, Americans are obsessed with entertainment for entertainment's sake, and characters with mental health challenges make for great, bolder than life, scary villains to haunt our dreams, or quirky detectives whose eccentricities are the key to solving the mystery, or maybe the comic relief whose mania keeps us laughing every Wednesday night. These characters tend to be defined by their mental illness, but without the full fleshing out of the realities that come with living with these specific challenges. Missing are the years of misdiagnosis, the cycles of medication, trial and error, the highs and lows outside of the storyline. We don't see the lack of adequate and timely treatment or the outrageous expense for that treatment or the alienation of family and friends. Shame is also rooted in our society's desire to always show our strength. With other illnesses, we are more than happy to rally around the victim who is being ravaged by the unfair fates of life. We bring casseroles to the cancer patient. We sit and chat at the bedside of the lung patient. We send cards to the wrecked body after a car accident. These are survivors. They are strong, brave, and worthy. If they succumb to their illness or injury, we say that they fought the good fight to the end. They are our heroes and our saints. They were so strong and never gave up. Mental illness isn't usually afforded that same care, grace, or praise. It actually tends to be the exact opposite. People struggling with mental illness are often seen as weak, lazy, and attention-seeking. We whisper about their breakdowns, but we don't send a casserole. We shake our heads about their struggle, but we tire easily of their stories. We don't ask how they're doing because they just might tell us the truth. And when they succumb to the ravages of their illness, far too often by suicide, we shake our heads and we ask why they didn't reach out or say that if they had just been a little bit stronger, they would have seen that life was worth living. They are seen as selfish for giving in. Mental health plays a very long game with few to no shortcuts. Humans are not known for our patience or our attention spans, so it makes sense that we have not yet dedicated a fair share of funding or research to the study of mental health. We simply don't find it sexy enough. The phone rings at 11 a.m. It's a Friday morning. My mom's on the other end. Jake is doing really well, she says. He's been fairly stable for a few weeks. She's hopeful that we have turned the corner. I wish I could share in her hopeful optimism. We both want so much for him to be stable, happy, and to find joy in his life. However, 35 years of advocating on his behalf have taught me a lot about cautious optimism, tinted with a healthy dose of skepticism. Now, if you ask Jake, I'm the favored child, the one our mother never has to worry about, the successful one, the stable one. If you ask me, I used to feel like the forgotten child. Our mom's time, energy, and money was needed to help Jake maintain a somewhat level plane of existence. There was no room for me to be anything other than okay, self-sufficient, and responsible. This is an all too common dynamic in families that live with mental illness, the push and pull between the love we have for the one trying to cope and the anger and resentment we feel for all that it takes from us. Now, please don't get me wrong. I do not resent my mother, and I don't hate my brother. While his illness often dictates the dynamics of our family, Jake is so much more than his mental illness. You will never meet a kinder heart. His love and care for the young and the elderly tells me everything I need to know about him. And his desire to understand how everything works in his child's eye for the world is endearing. I do, however, resent the system that doesn't provide support and makes it next to impossible to find any kind of long-term cohesive stability. I hate the lack of equitable funding to find new treatments and medications that don't rob their users of a fulfilling life because of dramatic and painful side effects. And I'm angry at our criminal justice system that fails to provide even remotely adequate training to its officers about the realities and best practices when working with people living with mental illness. I'm furious at a legal system that turns a blind eye to the need for common sense laws that take into account the mental health of those who enter the system. And I'm devastated that our denomination has failed to treat mental illness concerns as the social justice and accessibility issue that it is. The phone rings. It's 6:45 on a Monday evening. I can barely understand my mom as she tries to breathe and talk through her tears. She's overwhelmed and exhausted again. Jake has been arrested with intent to sell. Mom, she just can't do it anymore. The constant swing of stable to trouble to stable to manic to stable to depressed. I tell her we'll figure it out, like we always do. But I'm never really sure that maybe this time is the time we won't figure it out. I live in a perpetual state of fear of that phone ringing, not because of the calls about my brother, but because I know that one day the call will be to tell me that the stress on our mother was simply too much. This is the life of family and advocates. This time Jake was stopped while walking down the street. The police asked him if he had drugs on him, and he was told to tell the truth, so he said yes. They found 3 small bags of marijuana. He had been off medication for a while because getting an appointment with a psychiatrist can take months to obtain. Even then, the meds make him groggy. He can't think, and so he often self-medicated with pot. He tries to explain that he wasn't going to sell. And if you know Jake and his mental illness and short-term memory loss, you know that 3 small bags makes perfect sense to him. He's afraid he'll lose it or be robbed. Always have a backup or 2. That's paranoia. He enters the criminal justice system again, where he racks up a huge bill just for the basic necessities and medical treatment that is required upon entry. The bill will be paid by my mom. Jake's disability check barely covers his housing. And she already supplements that monthly check since those getting disability in Alabama don't qualify for food stamps. They give him a new med this time with new side effects and then blame him for the mania and disordered thinking that comes with it. His paranoia prevents him from participating in his own defense. Mom pays the bail to get him out, and he ends up taking a plea just so he doesn't have to go back to jail. Round and round we go, but no one is enjoying this ride. In a mental health crisis, people are more likely to encounter police than get medical help. And as a result, 2 million people with mental illness are booked into jails each year. Nearly 15% of men and 30% of women who are in jail have a serious mental health condition. And once there, many individuals don't receive the treatment they need and end up getting worse, not better. They stay longer than their counterparts without mental illness, and they are constant risk of victimization by other inmates and their guards. And then after leaving jail, many no longer have access to needed health care and benefits. A criminal record often makes it hard for individuals to get a job or housing. And many of these people, especially those without access to mental health services and support, wind up homeless in emergency rooms and often rearrested. At least 83% of jail inmates with a mental illness did not have access to treatment at the time of their arrest. Without adequate and consistent treatment, far too many with mental illness make the choice to end the cycle by ending their lives. According to the CDC, suicide rates have increased by 30% since 1999. Nearly 45,000 lives were lost in 2016 alone. And studies suggest that nearly 90% of people lost to suicide didn't have a diagnosed mental illness at the time of their death, but they did show symptoms. These numbers suggest that access to comprehensive diagnosis and treatment is seriously lacking. We're also starting to see a rise in mental health concerns among primary caregivers and families. Depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder resulting from the trauma of day-to-day unsupported care for family members with mental illness is rising. And all these numbers don't even touch on the increase in substance abuse that are used for self-medication. Advocacy groups are often made up primarily of families supporting those living with mental illness who have come together in desperation and necessity to advocate for change. These families are already emotionally exhausted, financially strapped, and generally unsupported by their communities. They live in silence and shame, forgotten and suffering alone. In 1961, the General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association passed a resolution that directed congregations to study the mental health services available in their communities and to advocate for expanded and compassionate care. Now, 6 decades later, we as an association have done little to shine a light on mental illness and mental health advocacy within our congregations and our wider communities. The work of our Beyond Categorical Thinking teams shows that concerns about mental illness remains one of the #1 issues that congregants have profound hidden bias around when they are thinking about calling a new minister. In 2011, the Reverend Barbara Myers began a mental health ministry at Mission Peak UU in Fremont, California. This ministry was to provide support to those living with and loving people with mental illnesses. Reverend Myers also wrote a curriculum, the Caring Congregation Handbook, to assist congregations in their own mental health ministries. I've had the pleasure of working with Reverend Myers on numerous occasions, and I admire her dedication towards establishing mental health as a social justice issue. If you Google mental health and UUA, you'll find many articles about individuals just like Reverend Myers doing great things over the years towards supporting our mental health communities. But my friends, this is not enough. We need an organized, loud, and compassionate movement to bring forth the issues around mental illness that touch us all. We need dedicated, open conversation spaces that allow for honest dialogue for caregivers needing our support. We need ministries in the majority of our congregations that understand the intricacies and roadblocks to mental health care and can provide direction to services and agencies that can help. We need vocal and knowledgeable social justice advocacy for the homeless and prison populations, for respite care for caregivers, and for changes to our mental health funding systems to open low-cost treatment options. We need to do more. It's Friday afternoon. I let the phone ring to voicemail. To be honest, I usually let Jake's calls go to voicemail. It's easier. I can generally judge his mental state by the message he leaves. I'll answer by text message. It's easier to keep him on track that way. He had been manic and paranoid the day before, mad that I had been so honest with the judge about his inability to hold a job for the long term. The message tells me that he's lucid and calm. Hey sis, I know we don't always see eye to eye, but I wanted to say thanks. Thanks for helping me at the hearing today. I know you didn't have to, but it means a lot to me. You know, we really should talk more. Well, I love you, sis. He knows that I will continue to fight, to advocate, to push for more visibility and better services because his life, my mom's life, like millions of others, depends on it. Friends, our values call on us as Unitarian Universalists to set the table for all, to make the door wide enough to get through, and to recognize our connection to all beings. We are called upon to raise our voices and use our talents to ensure that the welcome table is big enough, strong enough, and inviting enough to fit the whole world. It's our call to offer support and advocacy. It is far beyond the time that we answer the phone in regards to mental health services and advocacy. A few months pass fairly quietly, and those times of stability, they're always a welcome respite. And then the phone rings. This is how it goes, round and round, waiting for the call. Amen. Blessed be.
Winds be still, storm clouds pass and silence come. His grace this time.
please read with me the words at the bottom of your screen. As we extinguish this chalice flame, let us remember that we carry the light within ourselves, which brings healing to a broken world and hope for the days ahead.
Our closing words this morning are by Fred Rogers. That Fred Rogers. Anything that is human is mentionable, and anything that is mentionable can be more manageable. When we can talk about our feelings, they become less overwhelming, less upsetting, and less scary. May it be so.